They were called relics, dismissed as outdated, overlooked, underhyped, and often laughed at. HBAR, too corporate. XLM, dead on arrival. XRP, a lawsuit meme with no future. For years, the crowd scoffed. Retail investors chased volatility, not viability. They poured into tokens with dog logos, vaporware promises, and influencers flashing lifestyle over substance. Meanwhile, beneath the surface, away from the hype cycles and speculative noise, something else was happening. A different class of digital assets was quietly doing the work. Not to trend, but to transform. Not to spike, but to scale. HBAR was building enterprise-grade solutions for identity, logistics, and sustainability. XLM was tackling global remittances, making cross-border value transfer faster and cheaper for real people, not just traders. XRP, through its legal war with the SEC, was stress-tested and forged into something stronger. A bridge between traditional finance and the next generation of global settlements. This wasn't theory. It was execution. This wasn't hype. It was adoption. While influencers chased virality, while speculators refreshed price charts and hunted for the next airdrop, the real players entered the room. Governments, central banks, Fortune 500 corporations. They're not tweeting about it. They're integrating. They're signing NDAs. They're launching pilot programs, and they're laying the groundwork for a financial reset, one that won't ask for your permission. HBAR is now at the center of supply chain digitization. XLM is facilitating humanitarian aid in zones where banking access doesn't exist. XRP is partnering with global banks to move money across borders in seconds, not days, for pennies, not percentages. You don't hear about it because this revolution doesn't trend. It's not loud, it's deliberate. It's not speculative, it's structural. So the question isn't, will these projects bounce back? The real question is, were they ever gone? Or were you just too distracted to notice? Because right now, the gap is widening, not between tokens, but between those still chasing hype and those positioning for longevity. If you're tired of empty pumps, paid narratives, and exit liquidity games, if you want to be early again, but this time for the right reasons, subscribe right now, because the next bull run won't be about noise. It'll be about utility, compliance, and networks that already have the world's biggest institutions building on them. The smart money already knows. Now it's your move. Everyone laughed at HBAR, XLM, and XRP. But look who's using them now. Let's rewind. A few years ago, if you mentioned HBAR, XLM, or XRP in a crypto chat, you'd get eye rolls. They were the relics. Too boring. Too corporate. Too old school. They didn't pump 10x in a week. They weren't backed by celebrities. They weren't meme coins riding algorithm-fueled hype waves. While other tokens were slapping dog faces on blockchain and promising lembos, these three were quietly doing something different. Something that actually mattered. They were building. But in crypto, quiet builders don't trend. Retail laughed, shrugged, and moved on. They piled into whatever was mooning that week. HBAR? Dismissed as a private, permissioned ledger only good for enterprises. XLM? Dead project. No noise, no buzz. XRP? A lawsuit magnet, a running joke about regulatory failure. But here's the twist no one saw coming. The ones who laughed the hardest weren't paying attention. Because behind the scenes, real power was moving. Governments weren't interested in the next meme coin. Central banks weren't testing altcoins with cartoon mascots. Multinational corporations weren't looking for projects with no roadmap and all hype. They were looking for reliability, for speed, for regulatory compliance, for infrastructure. And guess who fit the bill? HBAR is now part of governing councils that include Boeing, Google, IBM, and Standard Bank, providing a distributed ledger for enterprise-level solutions at scale. XLM, through Stellar Development Foundation, is actively working with MoneyGram and Circle to facilitate cross-border payments and aid distribution in real-world deployments across emerging economies. XRP. While retail cried dead coin, RippleNet was signing deals with central banks, launching pilot CBDC programs, and forming partnerships with major financial institutions to overhaul global settlements. This wasn't a hype cycle. This was infrastructure going live. Now, the story has flipped. While retail investors are still chasing volatility, the most powerful institutions on the planet are building on these so-called dead coins. While influencers are debating the next narrative, these protocols are quietly becoming the backbone of real-world adoption. And here's the kicker. Most people still have no idea it's happening. So if you thought HBAR, XLM, and XRP were jokes, look again. Because while the masses slept, the infrastructure of the next financial system started rolling out. And if you're just now waking up to that reality, congratulations. You're still early. The lawsuit was a smokescreen, what they didn't want you to see. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. In December 2020, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission dropped a bombshell, accusing Ripple Labs of selling unregistered securities in the form of XRP. The crypto world froze. This wasn't just another regulatory slap on the wrist. This was the U.S. government going after one of the most high-profile blockchain companies in the world, and by extension, its token. To most retail investors, it was game over. Exchanges delisted XRP overnight. Traders panicked, and the media had a field day. But here's what most people missed entirely. The lawsuit, it was never just about XRP. It was about control, about precedent, about making an example. See, Ripple wasn't some basement startup pushing vaporware. It was building real-world financial infrastructure. It had over 300 institutional partners at the time, including banks, remittance providers, and payment networks, using its software for cross-border transactions. It was solving the exact problem the global banking system had been dragging its feet on for decades. How do you move money across borders cheaply, instantly, and transparently? Ripple had the answer, and it didn't require SWIFT. Now imagine you're a regulator. You're watching a private company build technology that could replace legacy systems and even challenge parts of your own monetary framework. Wouldn't you want to slow that down? That's what the lawsuit really was, a smokescreen. It redirected public attention, painted Ripple as the villain. It created uncertainty, fear, and doubt. But here's the plot twist. While the lawsuit dragged on, Ripple kept building. It expanded operations globally. It launched new corridors in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. It helped banks and governments test central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, using XRP ledger technology. It worked behind the scenes with real regulators in countries like the UK, Japan, and Singapore who didn't see XRP as a security. And now, Ripple has emerged from the legal battle stronger, not weaker. Court rulings clarified that XRP itself is not a security when traded on secondary markets. That one sentence blew a massive hole in the SEC's entire narrative. And it gave XRP and every other altcoin breathing room. But here's the kicker. While everyone was distracted by the court drama, Ripple quietly positioned itself as a key player in the next generation of global finance. And most people still haven't caught on. So next time someone says XRP is a scam or a failed project, ask them this. If XRP was such a threat, why did the US government feel the need to stop it? Because sometimes the strongest validation doesn't come in the form of hype. It comes in the form of resistance. And Ripple faced it head-on and kept moving. While you were distracted, Ripple was reshaping global finance. While everyone was busy chasing the next hype coin or doom-scrolling the SEC versus Ripple updates, something bigger was happening in the background, and almost no one noticed. Ripple kept building. Quietly, relentlessly, strategically. This wasn't just survival, it was evolution. Ripple's true power isn't just XRP. It's the infrastructure. While the headlines screamed lawsuit, Ripple was expanding its real empire. RippleNet. RippleNet is a global payment network that doesn't just move money. It moves value with speed and clarity traditional banks only dream about. Despite the SEC's attacks, RippleNet onboarded more financial institutions. Cross-border payment volume increased. Ripple deepened its utility beyond speculation into real-world adoption. Behind the scenes, Ripple was working with central banks, advising on how their technology could power central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Quietly, Ripple was laying the foundation for the next financial era. Global expansion without the US. While the US tried to tie Ripple up in red tape, the rest of the world did the opposite. Japan classified XRP as a currency. The UAE, Singapore, Switzerland, and the UK opened regulatory doors. Ripple opened offices in financial hubs outside US jurisdiction. The message was simple. If the US won't lead, Ripple will take innovation elsewhere. That's exactly what happened. Ripple became a global financial partner, not just a crypto startup. They stopped waiting for permission and built relationships where progress was possible. The XRP ledger never stopped evolving. This wasn't just about Ripple the company. The XRP ledger, XRPL, the decentralized tech powering XRP, kept pushing forward. While people argued on social media, smart contract features were tested and refined. The ledger began supporting tokenization and NFTs. DeFi elements, sidechains, and Layer 2 solutions were developed. This wasn't hype. It wasn't marketing. It was actual quiet progress by developers and builders who saw the long game. And now the shift begins. Ripple didn't need to wait for approval to launch Ripple, their US dollar-backed stablecoin. This stablecoin isn't just another fiat token. It's a strategic move to deepen liquidity on the XRP ledger, enhance enterprise payment flows, create a seamless bridge between fiat and digital assets. Ripple will be native to the XRP ledger, integrating directly with Ripple's payment systems and products. What began as a lawsuit is ending as a leap forward. The takeaway? While others were distracted, Ripple positioned itself as the backbone of modern finance. It shifted from defense to offense, and most people still haven't caught on. This wasn't luck. It was the plan all along. Now we talk about why banks are panicking, and how Ripple's comeback might just make XRP one of the most important digital assets in history. Banks are officially panicking over Ripple, Ripple, and XRP, and this is just the beginning. This isn't hype. This isn't some wild crypto conspiracy theory. This is confirmation. Ripple's launch of Ripple, its US dollar-backed stablecoin, has sent a seismic shock through the core of traditional finance. Because for the first time, banks realize they're not just competing with a crypto project. They're competing with a parallel financial system that's faster, cheaper, borderless, and already live. Here's why Ripple changes everything. Ripple isn't just another stablecoin. It's designed to directly power the XRP ledger, the same tech Ripple's entire ecosystem runs on. That means instant liquidity between fiat and crypto, seamless integration into RippleNet for banks, fintechs, and global remittance firms, cross-border transactions with near-zero fees, in seconds, not days. While banks still run on Swift and outdated rails, Ripple is quietly offering the upgrade the global economy actually needs. And now, with a stablecoin in its arsenal, Ripple isn't just moving money. It's replacing the infrastructure underneath it. Traditional finance is scrambling to catch up. Banks see the writing on the wall. Ripple is onboarding financial institutions globally. Ripple offers price stability plus the speed of crypto. CBDCs are being tested, many with Ripple's input. The XRP ledger supports tokenization, NFTs, DeFi, and stablecoin rails. All of this means one thing: legacy finance is becoming obsolete, and they know it. That's why we're suddenly seeing banks accelerate their digital asset strategies. They're not innovating, they're reacting. Ripple didn't knock on the front door. It built its own building next door and started attracting everyone inside. The SEC thought it was ending Ripple, it made it stronger. The lawsuit was meant to destroy Ripple. Instead, it exposed how powerful XRP already was. Investors? Still holding. Builders? Still building. Global partners? Still signing on. And now that Ripple has clarity in the US, it's no longer playing defense. It's going on offense. Ripple, XRP ledger smart contracts, CBDC pilot programs, global remittance networks. Ripple is no longer just a crypto company. It's the blueprint for the next financial system. So what happens now? This is the part where most people will still scroll past and ignore it. But a A few will realize what's happening. This isn't about catching a pump. It's about understanding the shift before it becomes obvious. By the time headlines say, banks are adopting Ripple, those who understood early will already be in position. If you're still sleeping on Ripple and XRP, wake up. You're watching history in real time. The next 12 months won't look like the last 12. And the financial system of the future is being built right now by Ripple. So if you're still wondering whether Ripple and XRP are worth paying attention to, here's your answer. This isn't just a crypto play. This is the infrastructure layer of tomorrow's economy, being built right in front of us. The people who dismissed it early, they'll be the same ones asking questions when it's too late to act. But you're already here. You're already curious. Now it's time to go deeper. Because in this space, early isn't just lucky, early is everything. If this broke something open for you, drop a comment, hit that follow, and share this with someone who still thinks XRP is just another coin. Because when the shift happens, it'll happen fast. And the ones who saw it early, they'll be the ones who understood that this was never just about crypto. It was about control, freedom, and the future of money itself.